Good morning. It's a real pleasure to be here at my first Oxford Farming Conference. This conference has a remarkable history, 90 years of new ideas being tested, challenges being confronted, and the future of British farming being shaped. Farmers are the custodians of 70% of England's land and provide 65% of the food we eat. You are the heart of our national life for what you produce, the communities you sustain, and the landscapes and heritages you protect. I live in a rural area and I represent a rural constituency with 89 farms. So I came to this role with an understanding of the challenges you face and the opportunities ahead. One of my first conversations as Secretary of State was with the NFU's president, Tom Bradshaw. Since then, I've had frequent discussions with him and stakeholders from across the sector, hearing about your concerns, your frustrations, and your ambitions. And every one of those conversations has deepened my respect for what you do, for your resilience in the face of increasingly unpredictable weather and volatile markets, for your innovation in finding new ways to farm productively and sustainably in a changing climate, and for your determination to build businesses you can pass on to the next generation. Speaking of your determination, I also want to take this opportunity to thank farmers who have been out clearing roads and helping to protect their local communities in the recent snow. You step up when your communities need you, and you are the heart of rural Britain. Today, I'm going to cover a lot of ground, but there are three commitments that run throughout my speech. First, that this government is serious about partnership with your sector. Second, that we're committed to giving you clarity and stability. Third, that we're backing you to grow with confidence and resilience. Let me start with the announcement we made just before Christmas. Since starting this role in September, I've listened to farmers and stakeholders about your concerns on proposed changes to inheritance tax. You told me the threshold was too low. You told me it would hit small family farms, the very farms we want to protect, farms that have been in families for generations, farms you understandably want to pass on to your children. We have listened and we are making changes, increasing the inheritance tax threshold for agricultural and business property relief from £1 million to £2.5 million. That means couples can pass on £5 million without paying inheritance tax on their assets, and that's on top of the existing allowances, such as the nil rate band. Around 85% of estates claiming APR, including those also claiming BPR, will pay no more inheritance tax. Good governments listen, and when they hear real concerns, they act. And that's exactly what we've done. And now we can move forward together. That commitment to partnership is why we asked Baroness Minette Batters to lead an independent review into farming profitability. We are working through all of her recommendations, and we will set out a more detailed response in our 25-year farming roadmap, built with you later this year. However, we have issued our initial high-level response. She underlined the need for government to work in close partnership with the agriculture and food industry. I completely agree. So, we will set up a farming and food partnership board to bring together the whole agri-food system, farmers, food processors, retailers, and finance. Because food security isn't just about what happens on the farm, it's about the whole chain, from farm to fork. I will chair this new board with my excellent colleague, the Farming Minister, Angela Eagle, as my deputy. Farmers will have a seat at the table when policy is developed, and it is your voice that will shape what the government does. It also means that government can ask things of you and the wider food system. When we open new export markets, we need the industry ready to seize them. When consumers want more British produce, we need retailers committed to stocking it. When there's an opportunity to grow, we need the whole system pulling in the same direction. That's what partnership means, not just listening, but acting together. And it won't be a one-size-fits-all approach. Different parts of our food system face different challenges and opportunities. We will develop sector plans, initially with horticulture and then with poultry. This will be followed by other sectors, where there's real scope to grow more of our own food. Because when British farming thrives, consumers benefit with affordable, high-quality food on their tables. Alongside creating the partnership board and sector plans, we have also announced planning reform to unlock food and farming infrastructure, stepping up action on supply chain fairness, bringing together farmers and financial institutions to tackle barriers to private investment, and dedicated trade missions to showcase British food and drink overseas. However, it's not just the relationship between government and farmers that matters. It's farmers' relationships with one another. The Batters Review highlights that collaboration between farmers and indeed with experts will be key to closing the productivity gap and improving farm profitability. So today, I'm pleased to announce our new Farmer Collaboration Fund of £30 million over 3 years. We want to make it easier for farmers to share knowledge with each other, to make best practice common practice. Across the country, farmers are already coming together, sharing that best practice, managing rivers that cross boundaries, and accessing private investment that would otherwise be out of reach. We want to support these existing networks and help get new ones off the ground. Our vision is to help farmers improve their productivity and profitability and to collaborate on delivering positive environmental change together. After all, the best ideas in farming don't come from Whitehall. They come from farmers. You know your industry better than anyone else. There's no such thing as a typical farm. A dairy farm faces different challenges to a horticultural business. A hill farm in Cumbria operates differently to an arable farmer in East Anglia. Our approach must recognise this diversity. And nowhere is that more important than in our uplands. They provide over 70% of our drinking water, support rural livelihoods, and are home to precious wildlife and beautiful landscapes. And they produce food in some of the most challenging conditions anywhere in the country. For too long, upland communities have faced a perfect storm: economic fragility, social isolation, environmental pressures. We want to change that. Over the last year, we started working with social entrepreneur Dr. Hilary Cottam on a new approach. An approach where we get out and talk directly to upland communities. So today, I'm announcing that Dr. Cottam and DEFRA will start a long-term partnership with communities in Dartmoor, then Cumbria. And the overall vision is to develop a place-based approach for what these communities need, co-designing solutions to specific problems. By developing a common understanding of how land can be best used for food production and the public good. It's vital we build governance that reflects the local challenges and opportunities of these areas. Together, we will look at pooling public, private and third sector resources, laying the foundations for new income streams and creating the skills and networks that let communities lead their own transformation. That's the most important thing here, that communities lead change from the ground up. During our time with upland communities, we also heard how much farmers value our Farming in Protected Landscapes programme. So today, I'm pleased to announce we're extending the programme for another 3 years with £30 million in funding next year. The programme has partnership at its core. It brings farmers, protected landscape organisations and communities together to deliver change at a scale no single holding could achieve alone. This extension means more farmers can deliver for wildlife, climate and their communities in England's national parks and national landscapes. Productive farms at the heart of thriving rural areas. And that partnership approach continues with the new SFI offer launching this year. You've told me loud and clear that you need clarity, stability and predictability. I have a background in business, so I know how important margins, risk and long-term investment are to you. Running a farm means balancing immediate pressures with decisions that will play out over decades. To make those decisions, you need to know where you stand. Protecting the environmental foundations of farming isn't separate from profitability, it's essential to it. Because without healthy land, there is no food, and without profitable farms, there are no farmers to produce it. Healthy soil, clean water, thriving pollinators, these aren't nice-to-haves. They're business fundamentals, environmental necessities, and the foundations of our food security. And with more than 50,000 farm businesses already in environmental land management schemes, many of you clearly agree. But I've heard your frustrations. The SFI scheme became too complex. The unexpected closure last year damaged trust and confidence. And too much of the available funding was being absorbed by bigger farms. So we're making 3 changes to fix that. First, we're making it simpler and more focused. 90% of spending currently goes on fewer than 40 of the 102 actions available. So we're streamlining it. Fewer actions, less complexity, easier to apply. You'll still have plenty of choice. But this government recognises SFI must work alongside food production, not displace it. So we will limit how much land can be put into certain actions and review payment rates for others. These changes will make funding go further, allowing more people to benefit from agreements. Second, we're improving fairness and accessibility. Right now, a quarter of the money goes to just 4% of farms. How can that be fair? We want to see farmers helping nature thrive everywhere, not just in a few places. So we're considering ways to address this, such as an agreement value cap. This will help us meet our ambitious environmental improvement plan target to double the number of farms delivering for wildlife. I've heard you say that you need planning certainty, and I know many of you will have environmental land management agreements expiring later this year. So I can confirm today that we will open 2 SFI application windows this year. An initial window from June for small farms and also those without existing environmental land management agreements. Then a further window from September for all farms. Third, we're going to provide certainty and transparency. From day one, I've heard loud and clear how important that it is for you to plan for the future. I recognise that mistakes were made in the past, and that's why I acted quickly, extending countryside stewardship mid-tier agreements and opening applications for the new and improved higher tier offer. I am determined to provide you with that same stability going forward. So we will publish full scheme details before the first window opens and set clear budgets for each window, just like with the capital grants offer last year. There will be no more sudden, unexpected closures. We will give you regular updates so you know when a window is close to being fully subscribed. Together, we will work with you to get the detail of these changes right, to deliver an SFI that is simpler, fairer, and more stable. An SFI shaped with you, that works for you. Once these changes are in place, the main design of SFI will be stabilised for the rest of this Parliament, so you know what to expect in the years to come, because growth in farming depends upon solid environmental foundations, and British farming is a key growth sector, one we are backing for the long term. I've met farmers who want to build, farmers who want to export, farmers who want to invest in new technology. Too often you've been held back by bureaucracy. Our government is changing that. I've heard from many of you that the planning system has stopped you building the vital infrastructure that you need. That's why last month we launched a consultation on planning changes to make it easier to build on-farm reservoirs, greenhouses, polytunnels, and farm shops. So you are free to diversify, adapt, and grow. Planning should enable ambition, not stifle it. But your ambitions don't stop at the farm gate. Many of you want to reach new customers, not just here, but abroad. We're opening doors to new markets by promoting British agriculture in trade deals with India, the US, and Korea. Our deal with the EU on food standards will slash red tape and costs, improving access to the EU market. And our network of global agri-food attachés has unlocked export deals worth over £125 million in the last year alone. We're also backing the technology that will define the next generation of British farming: precision agriculture, new breeding techniques, and smarter use of data. And as this year's OFC report rightly states, farming has always evolved, and your ability to innovate, adapt, and be resilient remains your greatest asset. And we will support you with that resilience. You know better than anyone how quickly extreme weather and disease can overturn months of work. That's why we're investing a record £10.5 billion in flood defences and transforming our animal disease prevention capability through a new National Biosecurity Centre. The growth opportunities for British farming are significant, and we are backing you to seize them. So let me finish where I began. Partnership. We will work with you, not impose on you, through our new Farming and Food Partnership Board, through peer-to-peer networks, through community-led change, and through engagement on the detailed changes to SFI. Clarity and stability. You will have the certainty you need to plan clear budgets, clear timelines, and a clear farming roadmap for the future. Growth built on strong foundations, trade deals that open new markets, planning reforms that cut through barriers, investment that backs your ambition, and most importantly, profitable farming and a thriving environment, not as a trade-off, but as two sides of the same coin. These are my commitments to you, the foundation for the bright future we are building together. That's what modern British agriculture looks like: productive, profitable, sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary of State, for those opening remarks. And the horns have fallen silent, so that can only mean an immediate endorsement for everything you've said from the podium. Please keep your questions coming in on the app if you want, and we'll also have some microphones circulating as well. But while people gather their thoughts, I thought I would open with a big picture question. Mm-hmm. So we had a lot of reports from DEFRA last year, of course, but also right across government. And the Prime Minister's Strategic Defence Review was perhaps one of the biggest and most meaningful of them all. And he called in there for security and defence to be the fundamental organising principle of government. And he and you have also, of course, spoken of food security being national security. How are you driving DEFRA to answer the Prime Minister's call to action in that regard? And how can people in this room help? Because you might be the Minister responsible for food supply in a war cabinet even before the end of this Parliament. Okay, well, we obviously live through very difficult geopolitical times where there are tensions between different countries across the world. So it's important that, as we said in our manifesto and as Minette said in her report, food security is national security. We have a world-leading food system. We produce 65% of the food that we consume. I've already started, since coming to role in September, providing the building blocks for some of the things we're going to do later this year. So we published in November our environmental improvement plan, which I referenced in the speech. We published Minette's profitability review. We've responded to that in a high-level way, and we're going to set up this new Farming and Food Partnership Board. And this year, we're going to set out a land use framework. We're going to, as I've been explaining and setting out the principles for, put forward the next iteration of the SFI and bring some stability to that as well. And then later this year, we will produce our 25-year farming roadmap. So I think you can see that we are working in partnership with the sector, and we want to deepen that partnership further, because we know that it's British farming that understands the businesses that you do better than we do. And as I've said, the ideas for some of these things must come from you working in partnership with us. And so ever since I started this role, but even before, because as I said in my speech, I have a semi-rural constituency, I have some beautiful farms in the Chiltern villages that I have already been working with, even as an MP, before taking this role.
You know, we can only hypothesise about the future, of course, but I think what people in this room would be comforted by is the sort of feeling that there is additional planning going on in the background for beyond business as usual. Would that be the case or not?
Well, you know, governments have to prepare for many different eventualities. So we do look at what's happening in the world and we join up the dots as well. We are one government, but in my role as DEFRA Secretary of State, it is my job to ensure that we have the most resilient and strong farming and food sector that we can. I think we start from good. I really loved the presentation from our friend Jack. It was very heartening actually, and all the stuff around communication was very interesting. There is a sense of pessimism out there, but actually we're in a much better place than people like to think we are. So I'm hoping that I bring that spirit of optimism, but also realism to this role. But obviously there's lots of work going on in government that I can't tell you about. But we stressed in our manifesto food security as national security, and I and the government really value the farming sector and the broader farming and food industry.
All right. Well, let's take our first question from the floor. I'm seeing a paddle raised over there. Is that number 3? Let's go with that one.
Thank you very much. Tom Allen-Stevens, local farmer. I lead the British On-Farm Innovation Network, and an angry man, according to your colleague. My question is about farming pioneers. Would you not agree with me that we have some of the most resourceful, talented, and progressive farming pioneers in the world? And if so, how do you intend to listen to and involve, engage and reward those farming pioneers to help develop the nature-based solutions and technological innovations that you've announced today under SFI and also under ADOPT? Or do you believe that we are just
that's probably enough to answer for one go.
Angry farmers?
Thank you, Tom.
Like your predecessors who don't deserve
how
to
are
be
you going to
listened
listen better to farmers, particularly those pioneers?
Sure. Well, thank you for your question and in the constructive way that you put it. I think that, look, innovation in your sector, and you know this better than I, is absolutely essential to the future of British agriculture. And that's why today, it's not the only measure that we put in place, but that's why today I've announced the Farmer Collaboration Fund, because we know when farmers cluster and work together, and that was brought out in Minette's report as well, that often sharing that best practice and spreading that best practice is the way to become more profitable and more productive. So I'm really passionate about that as Secretary of State, and I'm really passionate about working with farmers to make sure that the government is helping you harness that. But that's coming from you. Can I just say something? I went to Brussels recently and I met my various counterparts in the European Commission. And I think there's real interest in Europe to look at what we're doing here on precision breeding, on all sorts of new technologies in farming. And we are world leading in that. We should stand tall and be proud of the work that we are doing. And I am proud of the work that you are doing. And hopefully by working together, by helping support more collaboration, but also more innovation, we can be even more world leading and keep at the head of the pack.
Can you give a brief practical example of what that new 30 million for the partnership funding what might groups be eligible for there?
Well, I can't give you further detail today, but we will set out further detail. But it's 30 million over 3 years, and it's a new fund that I was very keen that we create. Partly on the back of what Minette said, we were already thinking about collaboration. It's absolutely correct that the government supports that collaboration across the country. And as I said in my speech, that we endeavour to make best practice common practice.
Okay. Number 5, over here.
Hello, Emma Hendy, farmer. What steps are you making to protect our amazing high standards of produce within the livestock sector to make sure that imports coming from other sectors do not impact or are of lesser welfare or lesser health status, because we are amongst the leaders in the world, and imports are a threat to our own food security within our nation?
There was a ripple of concern.
Sure. Well, can I just say thank you to the farmers in this room, because as you have rightly said, we have high welfare standards in this country, not just because government has asked you to do that, but you've embraced that. We have the animal welfare pathway that obviously provides some funding for veterinary visits to help with that. But I want to thank all the farmers here for embracing that. We are proud of the high animal welfare standards. We have made those standards and food standards red lines in trade deals with big countries around the world, such as the US, and we will continue to do that.
You must recognise, though, that the concerns that there is plenty of product coming in to standards produced below what has been expected here, and that ripple of uncertainty that additional standards would then widen that gap and widen the reduce the competitiveness of homegrown product further.
Well, we don't want that to happen. And as I've said, in the trade deals that we have done, unlike the previous government, which sold the sector down the river with the trade deals on New Zealand and Australia, we have upheld the high food standards and the animal welfare standards in the deals that we have done.
Your public procurement pledge, 50% of food bought by the public sector should be British. How is that going? How is the work towards that going? And shouldn't all of the food be bought by the public state be produced to UK standards?
We are working on that across government. That is a Cabinet Office lead, and Angela and Eagle and I are working with colleagues. It will depend obviously on the food, because obviously some of it, depending on what it is, might need to be imported. But I am passionate that we should use as much of and consume as much as our own food as possible. That's why we're looking at the sector plans that, again, were recommended by Minette, particularly, firstly, with horticulture, because we know that there's great potential there to grow, and the planning changes that we are consulting on will help that sector expand, and the poultry sector, where, again, we know there's great potential to grow as well.
Okay, I'm going to take the first question from the app, and then I'm going to go to that side of the room. Okay. Question on the app. What is a small farm under the definition of SFI?
Well, the standard definition, as people will know, is 50 hectares, but we will make clear what we mean by that before we open the window.
It's definitely going to be an acreage rather than a revenue
yes.
definition. Okay. Number one, please.
Hello, Mr. Ken Sloan, the Vice-Chancellor of Harper Adams University, and we were very pleased to welcome your Minister to the campus recently. You've rightly acknowledged, and Jack has challenged, the fact that the narrative around farming has been particularly bleak over the last 18 months. We've already seen one major university announcing suspension of applications to agriculture. As the head of Harper Adams, I work with a team that are very optimistic about the future of farming to inspire the next generation of young people to come in. But even we are seeing applications under pressure. So what are you, as Secretary of State, because we talked to the Department for Education, but what will you do to help us to make sure that the current narrative is not getting in the way of inspiring the next generation to come through?
Well, firstly, hopefully, we'll see, we can start to change that narrative. And as Jack threw down the gauntlet to us, we've certainly got to do that. I hope that some of the changes that we've made in recent weeks and months will help to start to change that narrative. And I know that Angela really enjoyed visiting, by the way, and I'd love to come and visit sometime. We need new talent, new blood in any sector, but particularly in farming, and we want to encourage the next generation. And I'm very pleased to work with you to try and ensure that we don't see that drop-off. It's something that I think we need to work on together. We need the sector to embrace it. We need such institutions, very well known and very well respected, such as yours as well. But it's something that Angela and I are very passionate about. We need to get the right skills and upskilling in the sector to drive that productivity that we talked about and profitability.
You must regret the 14 months of digging in over IHT before the change came and the damage that done that is sort of germane to that question.
Well, look, I came into this role in September, and I have been listening, as I said in my speech, to farmers about this issue since then, and before then as a constituency MP. Farmers, like the people in this room, aren't shy about coming forward and giving you their views, and I've got some very engaged farmers in my own constituency. I think governments should listen, And in this case, we have listened, and now we have significantly increased the threshold from £1 to £2.5 million, which means that couples can pass on £5 million, obviously on top of the nil rate as well. So we have made the changes, announced the changes. They will be legislated for and introduced in April.
Do you think those outside and in certain lobbying organisations like the CLA are wasting their time by continuing to campaign for further concessions on this issue?
Well, I was pleased, and Tom is here, I was pleased that the NFU warmly welcomed the changes that we announced before Christmas. From our point of view, that's it, I'm afraid. And may I also say, with the greatest respect to those outside, it is the people in this room who've engaged with us constructively and relatively quietly that have had an influence on this process, not the people sounding their horns.
Okay. Number 4.
Roger Mercer, Mercer Farming and Chairman FCN. Thank you for listening and easing the burden to a degree of the IHT changes. One issue we continually come across, farmers are encouraged to diversify. The planning system, to do that, we need an effective planning system. Everything is taking far too long. And also, it's not just farming. If we're going to get the country cracking, we need a very effective planning system. What can you do to improve that, please?
Yeah, well, I couldn't agree more, and frankly, the Prime Minister and the rest of the government couldn't agree more either. We've got a planning system that is sclerotic, and it is preventing many people in this room from growing, and that's why in December, Steve Reed and I announced that we are consulting on these changes to ensure that farmers in this room who want to build on farm, reservoirs, polytunnels, whatever it might be, infrastructure, that you're able to do that more quickly, because we know that the planning system is getting in the way. And as you say, it's not just a problem for farmers, it's a problem across the board. So we've inherited that system, we're absolutely determined to change it. We've already put a huge bill through Parliament, the Planning and Infrastructure Bill. We're consulting on these changes to the MPPF that I announced in my speech. I hope that by doing so, we can unlock the growth that we know is in particular sectors in farming. So we're really passionate about this, and we know it's a big problem. And the NFU and others lobby us ferociously on this, rightly so, because we know that there are big companies and small companies out there who have money they want to invest, but they can't get through the planning system, and time is money. So, and there are other places, particularly if they're international companies, there are other places they might invest as well. So we're really committed and focused on making these changes, which I hope will make a real difference.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, regrettably, that is all the time we have allocated. If you want to know more about what is happening, of course, you can read your Farmers Weekly next Friday or online. But for now, please show your appreciation to the Secretary of State.